masaf laysu kala madhay siraad laysu wada shiday lisasi gurdahaya salaanan yaa ahayn kama laysa saara lisa soo dhaweeya runta laga siqaaya
to lure simple-minded people or people who are just blindly nationalistic or clanistic or whatever they are, and which most of our people are, sadly, because that's why we are where we are after 30 years. So they use that to lure people, but they're not interested. Now, going back to the UK was interested definitely for its own strategic interest to see Somaliland seceding from Somalia. Now, when they could not really resolve the issue of Las Anwar, and it became clear that the Somaliland army was defeated and all their strategic points, strong areas were gained or captured by Las Anwar people and all of that, and it looked like this thing's not going to work. So now they had to go to the drawing board. Now the drawing board was in a way to kind of convince both Somalia and Somaliland something that they have entertained in the past, which is a confederation relationship between the two. This issue did not start with Hassan Sheikh Mohamud, the president, and the and Bihi. It started, in fact, with Farmaja and Bihi, and it was negotiated by Abiy Ahmed. And at the time, if you may recall, there was a meeting right around that time, 2018, that took place in Addis, and where Bihi and Farmaja met, and the deal was almost secured. What they wanted to do was, Abiy was interested in taking, and this was all laid out to look like it's going to work perfectly, that Farmaja lands in Somaliland, apologizes for the things that Somalia have done. The two brothers hugged and kissed. He would be taken to the parliament. He will deliver his speech. And then all of a sudden we are the reconnected brothers. And then it would be a confederation or, arrangement between the two countries, basically. Now, he was willing to do that and accept it by all the information that I have. He was on board. Now, what happened is that before he arrived in there, if you remember, he went back to Hargeisa. He was welcomed as a hero. Now, when the word get out that Farmaja would be coming, and Bihi may have had a deal, some kind of arrangement, of course, the protestation started from the parliament, the Gurti, or whatever name is given to that side, basically. So they rejected the notion. So Bihi came out and just said, oh, no, it never existed. He pleaded innocent, basically. So it died right there. Second time it was revived is the meeting that I just mentioned earlier, which is in December, late December 28, 29. And the deal was the same way, for a confederation to be funded by UAE, and Ethiopia to have a role in this thing, because the Red Sea is very critical. Ethiopia has to be accepted, and we will do it in two ways. The first arrangement would be symbolically to show respect to the side of Somaliland, that there will be a deal, that they will be the main principle, basically. After that symbolic deal is done, the deal will be taken to Mogadishu in a formal sense, where all the signing would take in the presence of the international community over there. The green zone of Somalia, where about God knows how many people are there. So for them to witness and a big gala and all of that, and great, now they got uh, the Red Sea. That was the arrangement. So then what happened? What happened is the protest that came from two main countries in the Red Sea, two main powers in the Red Sea that can really uh, kick this deal apart if they're not really brought in on board. Okay, and they see strategic threat in the deal. One is Eritrea, the other one is Egypt. Both of them have seen this thing as a bad deal for them. Ethiopia and Eritrea, we know what has been going on over the years. We know the symbolic peace that went between the two countries, and we know where they are right now. The two are far apart, and they don't trust one another, and so forth. The other country, of course, is Egypt. Egypt was interested. It sees this whole thing as something that's against her survival. Okay. On one hand is the Nile issue, which is the Renaissance dam that Ethiopia built and what it is doing to Egypt. The second thing is Bab el-Mandab and all of that. The third thing is the deal that Ethiopia, okay, has with Israel to really help in the process of building that the Ben Gurion canal that will be much deeper and perhaps even wider than the Suez Canal. So all of that, and that deal, by the way, was a discussion that Abiy and Benjamin Netanyahu had in 2018 when he was visiting Africa and all of that. The plan was to really have a reliable power in the Red Sea that can, on one hand, be a pawn itself, on the other hand, can see an interest that they want to play the role of the hegemon of the Horn, hegemon of the Red Sea and all of that, which Ethiopia was the perfect country for that. It was a perfect country for that. So that is what is at issue there. Now, in that context, complicated context that I just gave you, is what happened, which is really the core from the Somali perspective. Both Abiy and Bihi were not willing to entertain the idea of delaying the process until all the sentiments go down. They weren't. Why? Because the two of them are on the same boat. Neither leader or ruler or whatever you want to call them is popular among their people. Both are going, are in the middle of the wars. Threat from this side, threat from that side, prospect of war this way, that way, all of that. Both of them are cash drained. They're economically practically dead. They don't have anything. Ethiopia could not pay the principals of its loan about a month ago or so, $30 million. The $80 million they couldn't come up. But yet they're entertaining huge projects because the huge projects are sponsored by UAE and others, rich pockets, basically. Okay? So when that deal went the way they did it, which is let's do it fast, and let's get our people to support us on this, which both of them were behaviorally, by the way, both of them, those who follow the history of the two, they're a lot alike. The two of them are not, when it comes to wisdom and prudence and thinking of the big picture, that's not their game. So everything has to happen fast. Everything has to happen for the moment, for the optics, and those kind of things, which is what they did. Both of them met the following day after this meeting in Djibouti was over. Two flew to Addis Ababa. They signed a deal, and the rest is history because everything just went haywire. Now, President Hassan said that this is really not part of the deal. The big dogs that I mentioned, UK and US, were pushing what is going on in Israel. Now, Hassan took that outrage, did not address the real issue, which is the MOU itself. Is he for it or against it? He didn't mention any of that. He did not talk about none of that stuff. He did not even mention, he even in the beginning refrained from even condemning Somaliland in the beginning and all of that. Because he knew what he was part of. So what he kept talking about is Ethiopia is now trying to take our land by force. And that was a language that resonated with a lot of people. Unfortunately, some of our leaders, who each one just came out forward and just said, I don't accept Somalia's territory to be sold or to be taken or something like that. And the deal was not like that. Of course, Ethiopia's interest is down the road to take whatever it can out of Somalia. There's no question about it. And of course, we're against it. But what's the issue of contention at that moment? Nobody was addressing because he knew precisely what he was part of, which is what came out in the end, from different sources, from Ethiopia's revelation, from a lot of people who were in the inner circle, in the know. They're all coming out, including himself, the way he's been, the interview that he gave to Al Jazeera and Al Arabiya before, but the Al Jazeera one was even worse, that he was talking about. He's not against it. He's all for it. He's saying, if you want it, come to us, so we can give you. So what was about that of selling the land and stealing the land when Ethiopia is the one that is part and parcel of ATMIS as we speak? And there are unknown number of Ethiopian troops that President Hassan himself, allowed or invited, I should say, to come in along with Djibouti and along with Kenya that are not accountable to anybody, not to the Somalis, not to ATMIS, not to anybody. We don't even know what their numbers are roaming around the land. He knows all of that. And he never even asked for them to leave. He never took any punitive measures, diplomatically, that is, against the country that he is saying it broke international law by transgressing against the sovereignty and the territorial integrity. None of that. He never did that. So that's where I'm at, and I'll stop here, inshallah, and entertain any questions or comments.
Oh, thank you so very much, Abukar Arman, for that in-depth look back and analysis on things that are at hand and as they relate to the MOU between the self-declared Somaliland and Abiy Ahmed. Perhaps it's worth noting at a later time to discuss how Ethiopians themselves see the MOU. But for the time being, while Abukar Arman perhaps takes a couple of sips of good shah or water, we'll have Abukar. Yeah, if Abukar can, Abukar Sani, that is, if he can chime in and have his say on the topic. Abukar was initially supposed to be the speaker and is speaker slash co-host. So, the speaker, Abukar Sani, go ahead and have your say on the matter.
Thank you, Abdullah, once again, and thank you, Sami. For that, very extensive and also, well-rounded background that you went through. I really, I have some maybe disagreement with what something that you said, but overall, I really in line with you in your analysis. So going back to this issue of, this so-called MOU. Let's go back maybe and see, as the question that Brother Abu Ahmed started with, which is really why Navy forces for Ethiopia now? I think this is not really now. This has been really a well, kind of, vision or ambition that Ethiopia has been having for a long time, having been since maybe Eritrea got their independence in 1993. And there may be even subsequent maybe war between Ethiopia and Eritrea that finally made Ethiopia a landlocked country. It's really one of the things that Ethiopia is trying to regain again and recapture maybe whatever they can get, something that they can use for their own benefit. as we see, Abiy Ahmed's language in last year, I think around maybe around August or October. I'm not sure the exact time that he said, but he's, as we know already, all of us, Ethiopia can get, seaports either by force or by negotiation or by peace. That language really was clear from Abiy Ahmed last year, and this was really also maybe undercooking, as we can assume, between Somali leaders and also maybe Abiy Ahmed, because there was kind of unofficial or maybe or informal talks between subsequent Somali governments, beginning maybe from I think maybe from Majo 2017, 2022, and also going that also far with Hassan Sheikh in 2022, and as we speak now today. So this is really not secret from Ethiopia's perspective, having ownership, if you will, of seaports for their own, because it's not sustainable for Ethiopia to use either Djibouti or Berbera for their commercial purpose. But the issue is not really commercial. The issue is really naval base that really Ethiopia can have its muscle in that kind of in that part of Red Sea area. So I mean I'm not directly maybe now finger pointing to the US and the UK. But there are other players in the area that are very, very also critical and also part of the game here. As we know, in August, 17 agreements were signed by Ethiopia and UAE. Those agreements, part of them were really defense and also some sort of also I can imagine about maybe military. Also naval. Any area in that regard. So we don't have the details for those agreements, but some of them were really very clear. UAE is really, playing this role as well. Behind the scene, and if you also look at Ethiopia's, main, partner in import export. UAE is coming number 3 compared to other countries that they use or they have business deals or import export relations. So that is very critical element that we cannot, turn a blind eye. Secondly, also, as we know, as Brother Arman already mentioned, this issue of what's going on now in the Red Sea. Houthis are really now coming a threat, quote unquote, in that area, and they really fighting against anything that goes to Israel, that using that, Red Sea area. So in that case now, there's a need. If one can maybe assume here, there's a need for another partner in that area who can really engage in this situation and also be part of this coalition against the Houthis, and that's why Ethiopia is still trying to get that also. Have that also placed in that area, and to be part of this. Coalition that are fighting against the Houthis. So that is another element that also we can look at. And second, and finally, the other thing that I can maybe conclude here is that Ethiopia is really, doing the calculations. They do their work. Very well. As we know, since 1990s, Somalia was really kind of, failed state, if you will. That really continued because warlords were clients to Ethiopia, as we know, from 1978. So that clientelship for the warlords for Ethiopia was really kind of, something that was working for Ethiopia for their own benefit, to gain what they wanted to gain in Somalia, and also to have their, stay and also place, and even manipulate even the political process of Somalia post 1990. So that was also one thing that we cannot, also turn blind eye, and we have to also mention that because what happened was really kind of indirect or maybe direct engagement or direct maybe involvement since 2006 that we see that Ethiopians really are having their food in Somalia, either playing the games of politics or either playing the games of even force by having their forces in Somalia. So in that case, that led to the, what I can maybe call maybe by from my own analysis, kind of semi disintegration of Somalia, as if you will, because those, so-called lands that were created in Somalia was really a project that really Ethiopia was a key in bringing that project, to having some sort of disintegrated Somalia that cannot really function as a state, but can function only as clan enclaves that are really fighting against one another, if you will. So that is really another element that we always should keep in mind, because that's the game and that's the purpose. But Somalis are really, busy with their own internal clan X or clan Y, or maybe what clan X is doing is really against my own interest, or maybe what my brother, or what we can say, brother against brother. So that is really the game that we have been witnessing since the 1990s, and that was really intensified, or maybe became very true in 2006 after Ethiopia, invaded Somalia in 2006, late 2006. So all these are really part of that, project that we can see today. And this MOU is not really from vacuum. It has really calculation that Ethiopia has been playing for a long time to gain its foot and maybe its stake in the Somali territories. Now, this issue of Somaliland, so-called Somaliland, which still, I cannot tell today. It's not really, that language. I don't really use it because, there's no legal entity called Somaliland as a country, or even now as a claim as some sort of government that can function, because you cannot, reject what we see, the factual issue that we see unfolding from that region, and what now this so-called Somaliland can only be, in that context of Bur'a and Hargeisa. So that is reality that we see. SSC and other we see today where they fit, and also internally, also as we see even from those in Somaliland people who are really very, well aware of what's going on, and also the land grab that Ethiopia is trying to get from their own land are really not also in line with this. This guy Abiy Ahmed, the Musa Bihi, who is really by himself alone. That's really left rejected by the local people, even within so-called institutions of Somaliland. So the reality is that's the reality that we see today, and that's also the statement or maybe the factual analysis that we can give to this MOU theory. Even though Somali government rejected and said null and void, but also it's rejected not only from Somali government side or that but even within so-called Somaliland, it's rejected. So there are many other areas that we can look at this issue, and as I said, Abiy Ahmed is really trying to do his work, and we cannot also reject the internal issue that he's facing. The Amhara, who are now this group now is called Fano group, who are really uprising against the Oromian, power grab or maybe rule in Ethiopia that we see also within also Oroma itself. That we see, they are even rejecting even part of the Oromo. People are really even rejecting Abiy Ahmed's leadership. So, that internal issue, in addition to the Tigrayan that Brother Arman has mentioned earlier in his talk, is also part of that equation as well. We cover the internal conflict that we see from Ethiopia unfolding as we speak. So, where this will end, we don't know. We will see. And also, this title that we have here, we just read it, the practical agreement that we put quote unquote here. We will see how that unfolds. But again, as I started with my introduction, there are many questions that we don't have answers for as we speak, because there is no transparency going on from the leadership, our own leadership, as I can tell. Even though I'm not finger pointing anybody, but we can see that still what was signed in Ethiopia is really can really be considered as something that really were well known between those parties who engaged in that issue prior to January 1st and the meeting that happened in 28, 29 in Djibouti. That kind of also analysis is there, but we don't know whether that analysis is factual or not. But again, questions then answers. We don't have answers for many questions that we can really ask. So I agree also, Brother Abubakar. I mean, the issue of Egypt and Eritrea, as they are really coming, against this issue, because this again, as you can see, it's a kind of threat that they can feel it from their perspective, and that's why Egypt and Ethiopia, Egypt and Eritrea are really reacting to this aggressively, as they are not entertaining this agreement or between Somaliland and Abiy Ahmed. So I stop here, Abdul Qadir, and then maybe you can add maybe your thought as well, and then after that we can open the discussion. There are many people, some people who are really raising their hands.
Absolutely, 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 and I appreciate Joseph, Mohammed, and G. Hussein, I believe, who put their hands up for perhaps to chime in. But in before I do that, and I just wanted to go back to my brother Abubakar Arman. To I know I muted you, but if you can unmute. There are other notable things that are happening. For example, the role of Djibouti and its president. As you've seen with the last few hours, the former spy chief of Somalia, Fahd Yassin, wrote a blistering criticism about that country's president and his role in the overall situation, political situation in Somalia, and his knowledge of this MOU. As you know, other notable Somalis such as Ilhan and Farah Maalin have commented on the matter, somewhat interestingly, possibly igniting thoughts of perhaps this MOU, it becoming a rallying cry for Somalism. It might actually could be turned into another blunt political instrument used, as Abubakar Sani said, brother against brother, sister against sister. Your take on Italy's role, so-called role in this? There's perhaps an opportunity, or maybe a reported mediation by Italy as the Africa-Italia, meetings take place. As we know, Somalia's president Hassan Sheikh Mohamud is currently in that country. If you have any insights into those things, and if you can give us your take, and then we can go to our listeners, and then Abubakar Sani, if we can just wait till Abubakar to finish, then we can give the mics. As we do appreciate people waiting for us to speak as well. So Abubakar Arman, if you can hear me, if you can unmute. Thank you. And Djibouti's role, Ilhan and Farah's comments on the matter, Italy and its role in perhaps what is framed as a possible mediation between Somalia and Ethiopia. Any insights on those things?
Okay. Let me start with the easy one, which is Representative Ilhan's comment. I think it was just it's an election year. Some people solicited for her to say something, and she made a generic statement. And one thing that I agree with is, unless we are really on the same side defending our own rights collectively, nothing will materialize. She hinted on that, not in so many words, but that was the message that she was sending. So that's the way I took her comment. As far as an honorable Farah Maalin, his comments, I honestly, and I'm going to be frank, because if it was someone else that I politically disagreed, I would have been straightforward. Farah should know better than that, is what I'm trying to say. Yeah, the comments were just generic, tailored for the populace reaction. Does Ethiopia want to take Somalia? Definitely, yes. It's not hidden. Abubakar Sani just said that, and it's not from 2006 or any time near. In the particular speech that Abubakar Sani just referenced, Abiy Ahmed says to his parliament, reminding them of General Ras Alula, who is a famous Ethiopian and general, who considered the border of Ethiopia is the Red Sea. What he is saying, in essence, is from the Somali perspective. Not only would it include the area that we're talking about, but it would also include Djibouti itself. That was the dream from day one. That's what they believe. The leadership believes that, you know. And I'm not against to confront that. The how part is where we differ, you know. The how part. I just don't like the jingoism aspect of it. That let's do this, Somalia Skuma, Somalia Tosa, you know, let's do that. And those are rhetoric. At the end of the day, no one would remember those things, you know, because if you really want to share something with your brother and you want to be on the same side, fighting against one enemy, resolve the issues between you two first so you can trust one another, you know. That's the reality. So that's why I don't buy these kind of you know, statements that are tailored to get some popularity or some, you know, that he should know better. I'll be harsh with him because I know he knows better. I know he knew better when Kenya was entering in Somalia and he was defending that, you know, illegally. You know, he knew all of that. He knows that there is a border that Kenya is building. He knows that, all of that. Is that some kind of an annexation of part of Somalia? Definitely it is. It definitely is. You know. So I mean, I'm just saying, let's be honest with one another. You know, I don't sound differently if I'm just you know, because I'm on one side of the issue or the other. I want to speak for what's in the interest of my people and my country. Okay, that's what I want to lay out. Now, in some cases, people may not like that, and that's their prerogative. They can not like that, you know. But I don't see any merit in that one. Now, the other group that you mentioned, I think Ilham we mentioned, Farah we mentioned. Who else was there? If you can just refresh my memory.
The Djibouti's role.
Oh, Fahad.
And Fahad's comments
Yeah, yeah.
on Djibouti's leadership and Italy's role, reported role that it might mediate the parties.
Definitely. So now let me just go with the Djibouti and Fahad. That's if he wrote that. I'm not sure, because there were many times in the past that some things were attributed to him, and then it turned out that it wasn't him. I read bits and pieces about it, especially the parts that he was condemning President Gele on his role in the past deals and all of that. Did he say something that's entirely fabricated? I don't think so. I think there was some truth to that. There's some of these things. Now, we may differ as to what are the motivations of those truths, because the only thing that we get stuck on is the clan aspect of it. We just see the clan. Okay, now that may be a factor. I'm not against that. But he's not driven solely by the clan. Okay, like right now, the issue that took place in hosting Hassan Sheikh Mohamud and Bihi, the average Somali, it's like two clans that are somewhat closely affiliated, so therefore that was the aspect of it. Beautiful. Is that it though? You know, is that the only thing driving this? If we're in for that, we're in for a ride. You know, the world is changing and nobody's interested in this garbage thing that our people are still entertaining. You know, I wrote about, I think it was 2018 or 2019, kind of talking about, actually, I'm sorry, it was before that. It was 16, before Abiy Ahmed, the meltdown of Ethiopia. And if you put my name on the meltdown of Ethiopia or something like that, the article will pop up. Now, in it, of course, there are a lot of things that I was kind of predicting. That one of the countries that I was predicting will survive this whole turmoil was Djibouti. Now, one may wonder, why would I say that? That little tiny country that has less than 1 million, you know, that has all kinds of challenges left and right. Why would I say that? Well, because Djibouti, the big dogs wanted it to survive. So it has protection already. And it doubled that already by having 8 different military bases in that area, from Japan to China to US to France to you name it. Now, you think those people are going to look at Ismail Umar from the clan perspective? Was his interest to keep the fire on Somalia all the time? No, that game is for different audience. These guys are not interested in that. These guys are interested. Why would Gale would be conducting that kind of meeting? Who's behind it? Whose interest is it? You know, from the average Somali guy, oh yeah, from clan perspective. So that's what it is. So let's all go to sleep. And tomorrow we want to say our land is taken. You know, that's the problem that I have. That's why I'm not participatory in this jingoistic anti-Ethiopian sentiment. I know what Ethiopia wants. I've been writing about this for the last 16 years, you know, and I'll keep writing about it. I know that. But the issue is, how are you going to confront the challenging issue facing Somalia today? That is the critical question. Last but not least, on the issue of Italy. I think Italy, I don't know how
before you go in that,
yeah.
a friend of mine coined a phrase, lazy patriotism,
Yeah.
which is just parroting key words and hashtags and virtual signaling, others might call it, into patriotism. I think you hit the nail on the head that we need to do a lot of soul searching in our Somalism. Um, are we against something, or are we for something? To me, it seems like every Somali has a ready-made answer to all things that they don't like or they're against, but they'll be hard pressed to give you one or two things that they're for. So they vote against something, but they never vote for something. So, and I think we need to do that. And I think I'm not saying this because you're here. There are uncomfortable things that you say, but it stimulates dialogue and discussions, and you put yourself out there. And I know you have a lot of scars to show for those things, but I think you've been consistent. You've been down the middle. You have earned that credibility. You and Sunny as well. Um, with that interjection, feel free to go on to the next topic, which was Italy that you wanted to take on. But I just thought I interject and say that because really and truly, we need to go beyond the first thing that comes to our mind. There's a school of thought that talks about um, the horse and the rider, which means our subconscious drives the majority of our thinking, which is detriment. And we should really not say the first thing that comes to our mind and dig deeper and ask ourselves in what it is that we're trying to achieve. With all of that editorializing, go ahead, Arman.
No, but thank you very much, Abdul. It was very beneficial and it makes a lot of points clear. Thank you very much. I'm appreciative. Now, going to Italy, one. Italy's interest in the Horn is nothing new, of course. As we know, it's a former colonial of Somalia, Eritrea, and it's been hovering all across that area for a while. Now, and it expressed its interest to play a role in East Africa and really this whole new partitioning and redesigning of former states into interest areas for one big dog or another. Italy wants to play a role in that, but the people who preceded it, I mean the states, powerful hegemonic states, U.S. being part of it, UK, China, France. By the way, France played a major role in building the Ethiopian Navy, those of you who are interested in that. So the other day, someone was saying, why is Macron and Abid, what are they talking about? Is France going to be part of this or something like that? France has been part of that since the last 10 years, or at least 12 years, in building the Ethiopian Navy. So this is a strategic plan that was going on for a long time. And that's what I want to repeat. We just woke up does not mean everything is going to turn around, you know. Allah's plan is different. I'm talking about our plan, us. You know, we don't have one. We're just hitting one concrete wall after another, you know, and then we move on to the next one and so forth. So going back to Italy, today, I think the meeting, the symbolic or the reception aspect of the meeting is starting tonight, but the actual formal meeting is going to take place tomorrow. Now, the meeting is named after the guy who is the founder of NA, ENI. I don't know how they pronounce it in there, but the famous, the known oil exploration firm, you know, and that has interest in many parts. And in Somalia, those of you who were in the old days would know a lot of different gas stations would have that big sign, you know, and so forth and so on. So the meeting is named after him. In other words, it's not even hidden. The interest is how can Italy tap into the natural resources of Africa. So it invited the countries that would be receptive to its invitation, the Somalias, the Eritreas, the Ethiopias, and all of that. And the word has it that they might be planning also to play a role to filling where the two big dogs are missing, which is the UK and US. So in other words, to facilitate a meeting between these two quote unquote enemies, you know, I'm talking about Abiy Ahmed and Hassan Sheikh Mohammed, and kind of make sure that there is an understanding between the two of them, and then everybody goes back to their country. They already reduced, dialed down the harsh rhetoric of the last few weeks, as you may have noticed. The rhetoric is reduced, and now it's a matter of like, when are we gonna wrap up this thing? Because there's urgency, as you know, in the Red Sea. Saudi is losing tons and tons of money by delaying its project of 2030, the Red Sea Global, as you know. Likewise, China is threatened. 40% of its trade goes through that line of Bab el-Mandeb and all of that in Red Sea. Likewise, United States with 17 or 16% of its trade goes through there. And many, many other countries, and forget about Israel and all of these are really hit hard by what's happening in there. So the intention from the big boys is to expedite this thing as fast as you can do, you know. So they will do anything to make this thing happen. Now we can take our own narrative out of it and say, because of this, you know, because Abi said, I am so sorry, my brother. Now Hassan did it on his own terms. No, it's going to be a military, naval in that area where they want. And Allah's plan is different, as I said a number of times. But if things continue the way they are, rest assured that will happen. Okay? Why? Because their naval is already, ships are already ready. And they've been producing, as I said, the last 10 years or so, 500 officers per year. The Institute, it's called, I think, Ethiopian Naval Institute or something like that. Anyway, it's been producing 500 officers per year. By now they have about 500, 600. That's enough for you, according to the big guys and the way they think, to guard the waters, you know. And these guys can come in, and now if we need to use them against the Houthis or something along those lines, or, you know, for intelligence gathering, whatever reason, they can play a role in those areas, in monitoring or, you know, keeping the peace in that red water. So it's sad to say, but Italy is on one hand, as I said, looking for its own resources and connection to Africa and playing a role. As I said, it does not have any leverage on that. It does not have the money. It's really an economic shambles, as we know. And but where it will get a leverage from Hawaii, what it is facilitating for the two big dogs who really, really need those waters to be open, especially the U.S. And its role with Israel and all of that. So that's my take on the Italy one.
Thank you.
If I can
Yeah,
maybe add
yeah,
maybe two points
absolutely,
here, or maybe
absolutely.
a couple of comments. Yeah, I mean, I agree with Brother Arman. I mean, this issue. When I see our neighbor, our Somali, LFD or Somali region in Jigajiga, there are two ways that we can divide here. Number one, there are elites and also there are masses. The elites are always not reliable. Because they follow those politics that are really internal for them, as we heard from this guy, Akjar, his speech that he gave, that he was really, very well, articulated his position as Ethiopian is, seaport, and that was really not really ambiguity in there. Secondly, if you see Farah Malin, not only Farah Malin, but also uh, politicians in the NFD or northeastern Kenya. 2011. Look at this. What happened? Ethiopia, Kenyans invaded 2011 in Kismayo and Somalia. Southern Somalia, and all these politicians from the NFD were really part of that process. So in this case now, there are sometimes, we can see some hypocrisy going on between these these mass, these elites, politicians in those either in Jigajiga or in NFD area. So let's differentiate between these. The masses from those elites, because these people who are really in Somali region or NFD are really. They really believe Somaliness, but those politicians are really playing the game of their internal political issues that they are part of. So that's really what we need to make sure and very, very clear. And Farah Malin, I respect him, but sometimes he really flip flops. He has, some sort of, I mean, um, uh, the here and there. Many times. So that is really how you can look at those people. The issue of Italy, I agree with Brother Alman. This really, purely economic purpose for the Italians, and also kind of, as I said last night, as we had some talk here in this base, kind of relevancy from Italian side, that they want to be also some sort of visibility in the Horn of Africa, as they are part of that colonial history background. So I stopped there.
Yes,
I'll
thank you,
continue.
Abukar, and say hello to the family for us. I think that's the family in the background. We appreciate you taking every bit of a time to address this issue and participate this with us with the tight schedule some of us might have, it being Sunday and all those of us that live in the West. Mohammed Garad, you've been waiting patiently for a while. You can unmute and have your say. Questions, comments for the speakers, for myself, or those that are listening. Go ahead.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum, and thank you very much. And Abdul Qadir and Somali Dispatch, Abokar and Abokar Arman. So I do have two questions, both of them directed towards Abokar Arman. And honestly, I have read your initial article about the subject, and initially was a little bit skeptical some of the arguments, but honestly, looks like now everything is condensing towards your argument. And to me, that is not a great picture we were expecting, but certainly looks like it's the reality. So my question is about, and the reason I'm saying so is if you add two dots together, you can have that picture, which is the Al Jazeera interview, the Abu Bakr Arman article, and the government is in action. So three things gives you really a picture, which is the whole argument of the article. Having said that, the first question is about the hegemonic power that you have mentioned. The big guys are trying to create on the side of Africa, which is a hegemonic state power that has a presence of the Red Sea. So in that assertion, how much are these big boys are blind spot about Ethiopia's situation? Because fundamentally, Ethiopia's state structure looks like a kind of crumbling. So the state structure doesn't have a solid nation foundations. You know, the civil war in Tigray, now Amhara Tigray is going on. A lot of scholars are arguing the Ethiopian state has reached a point of decay that is no longer sustainable. So if they now extended that state situation to the Red Sea, how much do you think is Ethiopia elastic to sustain the presence of the Red Sea? And in that blind spot of the board of the big boys, with big boys, what I mean is what you have mentioned already, the great strategic powers in the Horn, geopolitics. So that is what I would like you to, if you can give us an idea about how dangerous is that. I think I'm clear on that. If I'm not, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Second question is about the our state situation, the inaction of the government. I read the law that the parliament has passed. Categorically doesn't mention the MOU as a substance, saying we rejected this substance. What it says, the law says that the president has signed it is those who signed the MOU do not have the legal personality. So in a sense, they are not categorically rejecting the substance of the MOU, but who signed it. So as we are speaking today, Ethiopia's presence, as you have mentioned, we know how deep it is. The ambassador even insulting the government and the country, but still has a presence. Ethiopian soldiers, as we have mentioned, are not mobilized, are in mobilization, both in ATMIS and non-ATMIS. So business as usual, but the president, what we have so far on the government side is just a rhetoric. And rhetoric, I don't think it can lead us to somewhere. So my question on this is, do you see it is leading to what you have said, which was practically at the end, there will be a kind of a new treaty which is granting Ethiopia the presidency on the Red Sea. And if that becomes the case, how will be the response from the Eritrea, the Egypt that the president has visited, who were, as you have mentioned in your article, categorically opposing this mission? If I'm not clear, I can repeat the questions, but that was what I would like to ask Arman. Thank you, Arman.
Fine. Now, Father, should I go ahead and answer this, or you're
Yes,
doing it?
please go right ahead.
Okay. Thank you very much, Brother Hamid Grad. Very pertinent questions indeed. On the Ethiopia side, again, I'll just take a couple of steps back. You may recall during the Tigray War, when at some point during the tail end of it, and the word got out that there's a lot of war crimes taking place there, some saying genocide.
Is Arman speaking, Abdulkadir? I'm not hearing anything.
We can hear him. I think it's at your end, Abu Kursane. I can hear him clearly.
Okay.
Yeah. So all that time, U.S. was foreign policy was siding with the Tigray side. Call it TPLF, call it whatever name, but it was on that side, thinking that because throughout the years that they had a close relationship in working against counterterrorism and all of that, there was a solid relationship. U.S. never trusted Malik Zenawi, but they saw him as a really a grounded partner, a person who's a thinker, person who has ideas. You may not agree with his ideas. I never agreed with him, but he was a Machiavellian. He knew how to sell his ideas. He knew how to play the role, to fill the needed representation that the U.S. needed in the Horn, all of that. So those 30 years or so, they were dealing with a militant group that took by force, and normally the U.S. foreign policy does not really put a lot of weight on those people, like they don't trust them. You can deal with them in the sense that they can be your partner or fulfill certain things for you, but at the end of the day, at some point or another with Ethiopian Ethiopia traditionally likes to come across as though no foreign country can tell us something. Okay, that is an attitude that the average person, I shouldn't say the average person, but most Ethiopians do, aside from the elite. And the elite does that also, but I'm talking about traditionally they believe that, and rightfully so. Every country should believe that. So going back to the way it was, the arrangement with the Tigray, now the US policy, and here's what answers Muhammad's question, leans toward the support of the Amhara against the current regime. The current regime, they know, is so wobbly, They were counting on these guys to really push it hard against the current, regime, if you will, and go all the way to Addis. And recently, like last week or two, they're gaining forces again, another momentum again. Now Ethiopia does not have the privilege that it had against Tigray, in which Eritrea assisted them in that war. Well, today is different. So that would be the ideal for US, to have a relationship with the Amhara leadership of Ethiopia. Okay. Can that happen right now? Well, I mean, the facts indicate probably not. And if it happens, it will take a long while. So if it's going to take a long while, how is that going to serve the two big dogs, specifically the US? How is that going to serve them? It's not. So therefore, they have to go with the reality on the ground. The reality on the ground is there is a guy who is really reckless, who has no political wisdom whatsoever, called Abiy Ahmed. Now you have to partner with that guy and see where it would lead you. Once you put him and the Navy, the Ethiopian Navy in there, then we can deal with how to handle him or who to replace him with and all of that. But in the immediate sense, I think he's the legitimate partner, and that's what they're going to do. So meanwhile, they're going to ignore all the factors that Muhammad talked about, which is how Ethiopia is falling apart. Are they ignorant about that? No, they're not. They know exactly what's going on in there. You may recall under Trump administration, one time Trump had his way of delivering his diplomatic messages. If you may recall, when he said that Egypt will bombard the Renaissance dam, if you remember, it was a strong language for the president of the United States to say that in the open. So what was happening at the time? U.S. was seeing the threat, the rushing of the manipulation on the Nile water and all of these things can create problems with a friend that it needed in Egypt, basically. So under the Trump administration, they were willing to support Egypt to take the last Zayla area. That was the plan, okay? That was the plan. Now, immediately, and after that, of course, things have changed. What happened? Well, in 2018, right around that time, I think it was 2018 or 2017, and under the Trump administration, Egypt signed a deal with Russia, okay, to build its own nuclear plant. The argument was to replace their energy needs that will be created with reduction of the Nile flow and all of these other things. But it also opens a lot of doors in these times of time sensitivity with Israel's objection to this and all of that. So Egypt was kind of sidelined. Egypt became pushed back. Now Ethiopia's stocks went up again. So all of these things is what they look when they're making strategic planning, when they're making geopolitical moves and so forth and so on. This is what the whole game is about, And for us, all of that does not matter. What matters is heavily hidden, and that's why we are where we are again, So that was the first question. The second one now, I think, if I remember correctly, let me see if I took a note on that. The inaction. Yeah, he said about the inaction of the government and the paper that was signed by the parliament I talked about that in Somali, I think, a couple of weeks ago. The very same question. It really, I saw that as if I were advising the parliament at the time, I would have said, do not. You have an image that you can make a difference, like authority and all of that. You're the parliament who can turn, cancel out every treaty that the government goes into. Look the part, look like you do have that competence. Because no parliament in the world would say we are against an MOU, or actually they were focusing on the land sale, the line, the rhetoric that Hassan Sheikh Mahmoud produced. But let's just say they said the MOU itself. Well, you haven't read the MOU. You don't even know if it is to the advantage of your country or not. No one read the MOU. So you sign a paper saying this is a policy. This is a resolution that comes from the parliament. We denounce and we do not accept, that deal. Well, first read it. It could be that someone could have written in there that half of Ethiopia should be given to Somalia. You don't even know that. So that shows the level of jingoism that I was talking about earlier. People were just flying between earth and the heavens. How dare these guys take our land? Okay, whoever did not sign must not be a nationalist enough. So it was sad, in my opinion. It has no value, legal value whatsoever. And Hassan signed it right away. Why not? Because no one was talking about the deal, that Ethiopia cannot take any of our waters. Leasing or otherwise. It does not say that. It does not say, Ethiopian military naval ships cannot come or get any fuels from our waters or whatever, to keep it all commercial, no military involved. None of that. So what's at issue then? What was it that they signed that we feel good about it? People are hallucinating in so many different ways. And sadly, those who know better are leading them and beating the drums for them. So that's my take on that.
Absolutely agree.
Yeah, I mean,
And
Abdullah,
thank
if I
you.
can maybe,
Sure.
answer the question of the elasticity of this. I mean, Ethiopia's implementation of this this ambitious project, which is having Red Sea as part of their, their own. So, Mohammed, your question is very valid, and I can look at maybe internally the Ethiopian, what I can call maybe the political skeleton of Ethiopia. I mean, as you see that there's always kind of contention going on between these. Ethnic groups, mainly now Amhara and Oromo. Amhara are really seen as the traditional Ethiopian leadership, if you will, even though they are challenged now by this Abiy Ahmed's, reckless, as Ahmad said, reckless behavior that maybe alienates everybody else as he fought against the Tigrayan regime or Tigrayan group in the Tigrayan region. So this kind of competition within the Ethiopian political struggle, I don't know. In this case, you can see overall. I can tell maybe the ambition is really shared by the elites. Whoever comes to power in Ethiopia, whether it's Amhara or Oromo or Tigrayan, the three main elements that are really always, even though the Selen was really a minority group the Selen who was succeeded by Abiy Ahmed in 2018. But overall, we see that these three elements, Tigrayan, Oroman, and also the Amhara, are the key stakeholders in Ethiopia's political maneuvering process. Even though they are really fighting against one another from time to time. So the issue of having this ambitious project be implemented and how it's really can be really fulfilled is really backed by other forces. So it's not really from Ethiopian within, but as I said earlier, this kind of coalition building issue in the Red Sea area against this Houthi group who are really rebels, as they are considered by the US and also UK. They are a factor there. So that's why Ethiopia is really this alternative. Backers here that are really beyond and above within the Ethiopian. Muscles. Even though, as I said, the elites of Ethiopians are really in common in their ambitious goals of having a seaport for their own. But we will see how this will unfold in the near future.
Thank you, Sunny. Gadid Samatar, you're up next. Unmute yourself and have your say. Gadid Samatar, if you're still around and you can hear me.
I cannot hear you if you are talking.
Arman, can you hear me? Can anyone hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Gadid Samatar, I guess.
Let me out and come back again. Maybe that's the case here.
Yeah.
Abdul, you hear me?
I can hear you, Abukar. Yes.
No.
Sunny, I can hear you. Yes. I think Mohammed also might want to follow up. I'm not sure. Yeah. Abdi Kafi, Mahmoud, go ahead if you can unmute and have your say.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam wa rahmah.
I thank you, Somal Dispatch, and the organizers and also the speakers. Um, I would like to ask a question, or maybe two. It was discussed extensively, this issue really, but what I would like to know a bit more is, first of all, there is, two main objectives of this project, right? That is the recognition of Somaliland and military base for Ethiopia. So, and both of them, they are quite linked. Uh, it has to look like one can be achieved without the other. So, I mean, so how likely is this project to succeed? For example, um, Brother Arman said, of course, there are powers behind this pushing, and it serves a purpose for Uncle Sam or or his allies. So, um, how likely is this to be materialized, to become a reality? Number one, and if this succeeds, really, let's say, this project succeeds. It should. Do you think it will be achieved in the way it was presented to the public, as Musabi, for example, said? um, we will only sign this agreement if we simultaneously sign or receive the recognition from Ethiopia. So so first question is, how likely is this, and if that form is not possible, is there any other form? For example, maybe other things given to Somaliland, and they allow Ethiopia to use the naval base. That is one, and the other one, let's say, if at all possible, Somaliland is recognized. Isn't it that almost like signing up to a start of a new war? A conflict within Somaliland, or maybe Somaliland and Somalia, because let's say Somaliland claims that um, uh, it is the borders is the colonial borders, and it claims territories outside its control, like let's say SSC Khartoum. So if Somaliland, I don't think personally, like that will be that easy. But if Somaliland is recognized, won't that be like signing or just allowing the start of new war? Because they would like to take it back the territory that territories that are outside their control. So I mean, I don't see any peace in that. So that is the you know, like, I mean, the overall or domestic question. There is just one last question. I think maybe I'm asking too many questions. Yeah, but just one last question. If this project succeeds, is that the almost like the end of Djibouti economically, as Ethiopia is I mean, Djibouti is dependent a lot on Ethiopian import proceed. So, I mean, I see some people saying like Ismail Omar Gelle was behind this project. But if Ethiopia actually achieves access to the sea, then it will not need to use ports in Djibouti, and therefore Gele will lose income and like revenue, and that will not be to his interest. So if this becomes a reality, is Djibouti dead economically? Those are questions that I had. I thank you.
Thank you so much. I don't know if Abukar Arman heard everything. If Abukar Senay heard, or yeah, go ahead, Abukar Arman.
Yeah, I heard the core aspect of his two questions, unless and let me just address the two that I have. One is he said that the MOU was two parts. One was which included the recognition of Somaliland. Okay, this is just what we learned from the outside. Initially, Ethiopia was very tentative. It was only Bihi who was saying that. They never went and said that. And then the language progressed to saying, we will consider that. And then we will work through the mechanisms that are available, whether the AU and all of these others. So it was just progressing, but it was just an idea that was out there, and it was just being kicked every direction, basically. So there's no formal agreement between the two entities, as Mosabi had put it, and which says the two would be taken simultaneously. That you give me this, I give you that. It does not even make logical sense, because having a naval military port in that area is not a matter that takes one signature or one statement that says we recognize this country. It doesn't work that way, and we know that. But those were rhetoric that was directed at for domestic consumption. Against those who are in who are the opposition, those who are to project himself a man of power when he lost all the power, more so than Abiy Ahmed. He does not have anything in control of his small entity after what happened in Las Anod and SSC, Khartoum, and all of these other things, and what's happening in Audel as we speak. So he has no control of anything, and he's cash drained and everything. The same way on the other side. So I don't think the issue of Somaliland is an issue at the moment. I wrote that about a year ago when I was talking about Las Anod and what was happening then before SSC Khartoum became formally declared. Yeah, and I was saying once upon a time UK was interested, and I did say that earlier in my introduction, that it was interested to go ahead and find a mechanism to recognize this. So it will have a exclusive zone of her control, UAE's control, basically, the hegemon that has area within the Horn of Africa. It was really something that was tempting for it. And as I said, there are some indications, the training of the special forces, and so many other things that we don't have time to go into. So I think the Somaliland, I hate to say this to my brethren who are from Somaliland, and we debate sometimes, been debating and talking privately and in public. I don't think there's something that we should not even waste time in the recognition question at the moment. And you can see that from Bihi himself, the interview that he gave after the that Ethiopia was denied to enter the Somali air. By the way, that's a different story. But you remember the interview that he gave when he was asked that he's rattling all over the place because initially from the surface, it looked like Somaliland was really a step away from recognition because that was what was being told to people. I'm not talking about they didn't have a grievance and all of that. That is different ballgame. I talked about that in 2012, a long article about why Somaliland matters. Whoever wants to read that can read it from there. So, but that long narrative is overthrown the same way why Israel's narrative of Holocaust is wiped out by what Israel is doing to Gaza today. Everyone can see that live. So the previous one does not matter. The same thing happened to Somalia when they were doing it to Las Anot and all of that. People were watching that. What are you talking about? Once upon a time, some MiGs came from Mogadishu and destroyed my 2 towns. You're destroying it as we speak. You're destroying mosques, you're destroying hospitals, you're destroying everything. So that argument is killed a long time ago, and I don't think there's a way of going back. Certainly not under the administration of the current leader, Musa Bihi. I don't think, and I'm just speaking frankly, so I wouldn't waste my time on that one. Now, the second question, which is the Djibouti. Through Djibouti, as we know. So would that not be a loss of revenue for Djibouti? No, it would not be. Because remember, this whole thing, the main reason is not commercial. Now, one may say, yeah, a few 100 miles extra or advantage to the land, or I don't know the distance between. This one is closer to Loyad or all of these other things. One may argue that. But at the end of the day, the whole reason is military based on that. That's what they're looking for, a military base. And they already prepared the naval force and all of that. So Djibouti is not losing sleep over this, is what I'm trying to say, basically, because the commercial aspect of it for Ethiopia will continue with Djibouti for a long time. And even if it did not, and if the deal is cut off right now, Djibouti is less than 1 million, and it has already 8 military bases in there of who is who among the world powers. It has enough revenues to live and exist for centuries and centuries to come. So this notion that says, well, Djibouti is going to go broke, it's not valid when you test it and put it against the fire. So I hope that answers both questions.
It does. Not sure if Mohammed Garad wants to go back and readdress his questions, but I think that pretty much, yeah, go ahead, Mohammed.
It was just the last question, and I appreciate Abdulkader for giving me the mic one more time. About the second question, and I would like to repeat a little bit. The Abukar has already addressed it, but I would like if he can a little bit explore more, and that's about the hypothetical situation that this deal may end up. It looks, and I want to say it this way: it looks like, in all likelihood, in probability, it looks like this may end at the end. One of the possibilities, it may end in a kind of settlement between Ethiopia and Somalia. Let's say it this way: Somali government might sign. If that happens, and Somali government in one of some sort allows Ethiopia to get food on the Red Sea and get a military base, how dangerous that can be and in the region, and by taking into consideration about the region and Horn as a substance, and the 2 countries that you mentioned in your arguments about the Eritrea and Egypt, what will be the situation if that becomes the reality?
If that becomes the reality, it's very dangerous. And again, it's consistent to what I have been saying for years and years. The intention of Ethiopia in expanding into the land is not a secret. The fact that we're really in a miserable position to really defend our own country, other than the rhetoric, other than the shouting of, and other than the demonstrations in 4 different cities, and, other than that, in reality, we're really not in a position to defend our position. And we're not even trying to do that in reality, because we're not fixing what is between us. So therefore, these are just words when people are saying this. So if that was to materialize, rest assured that General Ras Alula of the Ethiopian general, what he said would certainly become a reality. And I'm not talking about Allah's plans. That's a different story. I'm talking about just the reality before us. Judging from that, okay, what's appearing in front of our eyes, that is a possibility. And, in the past, and as a part of the reality on the ground, there were Somali clans that are being cleansed from certain territories that everyone knows. And there is the element of the Afar and the Isa in Djibouti and all of that. So don't be surprised. Now, if the big guys are going to bet on somebody, some country, I'm sorry, Ethiopia and Djibouti, they would have bet on Ethiopia before Djibouti, because that is a group that they think that they can have a lot of, how do you say, they understand the system, how it works, and they have all of these African institutions and the name recognition and the cloud that comes with it and so forth and so on, and the history that comes with it. So ideally, they would have gone there. But right now, between Abiy and Ismail, of course, the better bet for them is Ismail. He's more, looks like more stable and so forth and so on. So the danger is there, because Ethiopia never hid their intention. And as I said in my earlier introduction, when Abiy said it verbatim, said that our border, as General Ras Alula said, that it ends on the Red Sea. That's our natural border. The Red Sea is our natural border. So Maqaba and Rajadas, of course they do. So are we in a miserable position right now to be exploited at the moment? The simple answer is yes, we do. We are. I'm sorry. So I hope that answers.
That's perfectly fine. Thank you, Abukar. We'll go to Wilwal first, then your namesake, Abukar. Go ahead, Wilwal, if you can hear us, you can unmute and have your say quickly, because we've been at this for a while. I know you joined us a little bit later, but if you can make your comments, go ahead. Wilwal, if you can hear me. If not,
Thank you, Abdul
yeah,
Qadir.
Wilwal.
Thank you. So I will just wait a little bit, so you can give the next person to the platform. Thank you. I will wait a little bit.
You're welcome. Abukar, go ahead. You have your hand up and you can unmute.
Yes, yeah, thank you, yeah, for, the question is analysis Ethiopia turn on MOU with practical agreement. That's the question.
That's the topic.
That's the topic, yeah.
Yes.
I don't think so. This will be easy way to actually Ethiopia to get this agreement, because a lot of obstacle would, and because right now it's United Nations, Somalia actually is winning United Nations argument, and so Ethiopia just they don't want to actually attend United Nations Security Council meeting, maybe like tomorrow or next day, maybe, and Monday or Tuesday will be United Nations and meeting for issue of Somalia and Ethiopia. So the Ethiopia is actually evading international law. So that means Ethiopia only have one option left. Is if she can force to capture Somalia and that region, Awdal, if she can keep That might be only thing option she have, but she doesn't have no legal argument or whatsoever. And so that's the actual situation. And if Ethiopia want to, invade Somalia again, and I'm not recommended, but that's the only thing options she have.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it's just a title. It doesn't mean we agree with or we think they can turn that MOU into a practical agreement. We're just discussing the fact that they're insisting on their latest comment on the matter was the ruling party supporting Abiy's ambition and going further and doubling down and saying we will actually turn the MOU into a practical agreement. I guess we could have thrown in a question mark at the end, but yeah. So
yeah.
thanks. Thank you, Abukar, for that comment.
Yeah. One thing about we don't have to worry about what Ethiopia wanted. It's not important to what everybody else wanted. Everybody can want something he doesn't have it. That's the wishful thinking. I can want your own car. I can want your own house. It doesn't mean I have to have right to take away your house and your property. And
Absolutely.
so yeah, we actually a lot of the conversation I had now in Somalis or people speaking English well or with only focusing what Ethiopia wanted. We don't care what Ethiopia wanted. It's the craziest idea. They might need whole African Ethiopia. So it's not something practical. Yeah, it's not the way how the world works.
So are you saying we shouldn't be discussing it at all?
Yeah, we should actually. We don't have to focus more about what general,
But
and
but
isolated general.
with all due respect, though, Abukar, you've joined us not even halfway through. We've been talking about the dangers and the pitfalls of Ethiopia's ambition. We have to discuss. We have to alert people what it means and what the fallouts are, what the implications are. Like you said, yeah, someone can say, "I want what you have," but you cannot dismiss it simply by saying, "Well, you can't." You have to make your stance known and let it be known. If you try to turn that into a practical then there are consequences. And that's what we've been discussing. We don't care what Ethiopia wants. It's always been, to me at least, a flawed argument. Yeah, we have a sea land, a seashore. We would like to deal with Ethiopia as a viable commercial prospect for Somalia, but Somalia cannot say, since we have all these sea and we want to do trade, we need someone to buy our products or our goods. So we'll just go and take part of Ethiopia so that we can have customers. It doesn't. The world doesn't work that way. Hokar Arwan, I don't know if that simplifying it to that level makes any sense, but for Ethiopia to say, we have a need for a sea access, well, what about the access Somalia needs for clients and customers? Does that give Somalia the right to annex a part of Ethiopia and say, well, these are the customers we need to trade with? So we're going to practically going to take some of Ethiopia's land. No, it doesn't work that way. I thank you, Abukar, for your comments. Definitely agree with you, but that we're not giving credence to Ethiopia's wants. We're actually challenging them. Thank you. For
Brother,
us,
maybe
for
you hear me?
yeah,
You hear me?
yeah, Abukar said
Oh,
we can
sorry.
hear
Yeah,
you.
I mean, yeah, I was in and out because my technical maybe issue going on here. Anyway,
Yeah,
I was hearing last time Mohammed Grad was asking a question to me, but I don't know the full. I wasn't hearing the full question that Mohammed Grad was asking. But I talked about what I call the.
yeah,
I mean, if he was hearing me earlier about what's called the what I call the political skeleton of Ethiopian Ethiopia. I mean, that is really based on these three. Even though the Somali, I mean, region, I mean, is even greater than the Tigrayan community or Tigrayan ethnic group. Their position is very very limited, or maybe even doesn't exist, if you will. So these three groups, I mean, the Amhara, the Oromo, as the majority Ethiopian ethnic group in Ethiopia, and the Amhara, the struggle for power relationship there has been really for a while, and also the Tigrayan also region, which also sometimes, I mean, or most of the time fights for also having their own stake in the Ethiopian politics. So that's what I was, I think, alluding my early comments. If I
Yeah.
also comment to Brother Arman's point of view that he said about this, the so-called, or maybe what used to be called Somaliland, that maybe what you can maybe say now, because legitimacy within has already failed. So that's not really the case for that, region. But I mean, this guy Musabi is trying to do whatever he wants, even though he doesn't have that kind of legitimacy from within the SSC, as we know now, entity that's independent for itself and also out of the state, that also trying to reject, and also become kind of region that's autonomous or maybe free from the influence of what's happening in Hargeisa. So that is really very reality. I know people really sometimes they want to romanticize or maybe take their own views and also feel their own passionate position, but reality is reality. So in that case, there's no now what can be called legitimate from within Somaliland. So I don't know if you can maybe Abdul Qadir, tell me more about the question that Mohammed Grad asked.
Yeah, it was actually more towards Abukar Arman, but you did cover part of
Oh,
the question that he posed. And I think we've been at this for like 2 hours. I would like to go to Wilwal for a quick comment and then and just give closing remarks, Abukar, to Abukars, the namesakes, if that's okay. Yeah, Wilwal, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Abdul Qadir, and the speakers. Although I joined you halfway through the program, which is or your debate, which is very useful when you look at the current geopolitical situation in our region. This agreement, which the so-called MAU agreement with the region in Somalia, that Ethiopia signed with that region, and I was hearing these days, and I can hear from you that Ethiopia has, they're thinking about, or they already changed that MAU into practical agreement, which means they already breached the premises of the MAU, which was that the base or the access to the sea was in exchange with the recognition with that region. And I don't know if making it practical agreement means that they will proceed to their ambitions and maybe already starting establishing that naval base. I don't know that or what this practical agreement means into law. But the question I wanted to ask to the speakers or to Abukar Arman is, what if that's the question, or is what makes me not falling asleep all these days is, what if Ethiopia proceeds to go to its ambitions and maybe begin to establish that base, what we have we have in our disposal as a nation, a Somali nation, in order to prevent that or to stop them from doing that. What do we have? Do you have any means to do something, or we only going to international arenas or talking to the friendly nations, or maybe saying, entertain ourselves, saying we have this country or that country who will defend us, and that's not the way the international relations or the world works. So
Right.
what do we
So
have? What do we have?
yeah.
The
So I
question is,
think your question is clear. Let Abukar
yes, thank you.
answer, and then thank you very much, Wilwal.
Thank you.
Abukar, you can answer that, and we can conclude there. If Abukar Sane doesn't have further item to add.
Bismillah. And Thank you, Brother Wilwal, for the question. Um, I don't know when did you join us, but we did talk about
Correct.
right a lot of this thing in the beginning. I'm afraid the way things are right now, and I know a lot of people would not like to hear this. The way things are right now, it will materialize other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is stopping. A power that's much higher than yours, mine, Hassan Sheikh Mahmoud's, Bihi's, Lagu, and all of these others. That can stop. But right now, the way things are is that thing will materialize. When? It's an open for debate. And already the guy who was leading this whole crusade, if you will, oo waanu lagu soo duulay dhulkii la gadan rabaa dhulkii la qaatay qeyba lala boobay dhahayo, the same guy will sign. Now, it will exclude the recognition part of Somaliland because that's, as I said a number of times, that's just not there. It wasn't there to begin with, and it's not going to be there now. No, any recognition by Ethiopia to Somaliland. Okay. But what would happen is, which is the dangerous aspect, for Ethiopia to get a naval base in there, in that area that we're talking about. It will, because all the ducks are in line now for that to happen, you know. And meanwhile, other than saying we oppose this and we think this is illegal, and at the end of the day, no one is talking about what exactly is the illegal. And then the UN issues or somebody issues a statement, we recognize Somalia's territorial integrity and sovereignty, you know. Okay, all of these things that are happening proves that we're sovereign. We cannot even control our borders. You know, this false reality that we exist in, that we've been inhaling and exhaling for the last 30 some years, that is the problem, you know. So that's why I say, if we really want to be respected as a nation, as a people on the same side of the issue, you cannot fool people. We fool each other, but we cannot fool the world. They see us in how ugly we are, you know, in our interaction and our care for one another and our sharing of resources, our treating each other justly and all of that. None of that exists. What do we think these people in Halana are doing? Just watching shark fins emerge out of the ocean, out of the sea every now and then? These are gathering intelligence, and they see everybody. They see a president who cannot settle in his own country, in his own capital for a week. You know, that's the reality. You know, that's what they see. And then all of a sudden we say our territorial integrity is, your border is being taken, you know. And Ethiopia is not only talking about Halha and Zayla and Lokhayo or all of these other places. I don't know the names, I've forgotten. And they're not only talking about that, they're talking about Barao. They're talking about a couple of other ports. Remember, 4 ports were signed for him. You know, while Mohammed bin Zayed was sitting in Addis Ababa, who paid for all of these things. He came to Mogadishu, stayed 4 hours, and came back to spoke to his parliament and said, "We got four of those." You think this is a game? And I think in general. I'm speaking to our people and anyone who's listening to this. You know, that is where the problem is. So if the question is, what legal authority do we have to stop this thing from happening? I'm not talking about to kind of change the wording, those kind of things. Those kind of will happen, no doubt about it. They will renegotiate. It's not going to be the way these guys were planning in the beginning. It will be different, you know. But at the end of the day, when all is said and done, you will have some of these Ethiopian ships, if not all of them, parked right there, you know. It will happen. And then there's, by the way, right there is a natural port that it does not need a lot of investment in it, that Chevron used to use it. And I mentioned that in the article and all of that. So they will have all of these functionalities in the area. They will do whatever they have to do, make sure the area is cleansed out of certain threats. Maybe they're doing it as we speak. Who knows? You know. And a lot of different places that I talked about it in the past in our country, even during the government, the military time. But that's long history. But anyway, all the areas where they tell you no-go zone, that is the area where it's being illegally mined in one way or another. So someone who does not want you to get close to that area. Shabab resides there. ISIS is residing there, and you wonder and you say, what are they doing there? What are they doing in that isolated no man's land? The person who is there is the person who is exploiting the land. So what they will do is create those kind of stories, which has been done in the past. The locals would see these flashlights at night. There are jinns and afarid.
Yeah, we heard this. Yeah.
We heard that story so many times. They will do the same thing. So you will see clans and that are in the territory being moved away. Between them fights like a wala cleans garena wala gali hina meshod. Meanwhile, anaga waxaan leenahay waana la ictiraafa laydima ictiraafa waana la ictiraafa lama ictiraafa reer hebel iyo reer hebel walaaloobo against reer hebel. That's the reality that we have to grow out of, especially those of us who know better. dadka caadiga masaakiinta waa gooni laakiin kuwaana waxa og inay runta sheegaan waa. We're not in a position to stop Ethiopia from what it's getting. Is it a bad thing for Somalia? Absolutely, yes, it is. But are we on track to stop them? The answer is, I'm sorry, no, we're not.
I think that sums it up, and it's a sobering thought and perhaps a jolt that's needed to ignite a better approach, a better Somali approach to this problem. Instead of making it 90% what Bihi is doing, we should perhaps focus more on our collective Somalism and how we can actually behave as we see ourselves. It's the old saying, Abukar, if you remember, and I'm sure you do, are you who you say you are, or are you how you see yourself, or are you how the world sees you? Yeah, so it's a question that all Somalis need to ask themselves. It's not about who signs it or how it's framed. It's the effect at the end of the day, not the intention. With that, I like to conclude, and I like to thank the two great Abukars and all of you that joined us and wanted to speak to this and have spoken to this. I'm so sorry we've been at this for 2 hours. We will continuously to do this, and perhaps you can join us, and we will definitely prioritize you in saying your say. Believe me, if you joined us now, there isn't anything that hasn't been said on this topic. Now let's just get to the doing, and we start by the doing, by believing, by allowing our fellow Somalis to have their wants and needs rather than fight them, and that's how we get divided and others come in. To me, in the conclusion of Abukar Arman's statement there, to me it seems like a non-Somali can do whatever the heck they want in Somalia, but your fellow tribesman or your fellow countryman, that's who you scrutinize, that's who you shed light on, that's who you challenge, that's who you are focused on, and the world is truly laughing at us. So let's take steps in bettering ourselves by start changing our thoughts and the way we look at each other, and perhaps not focus as much on each other, but those that seek to take advantage and destroy us. Thank you, Abukar Arman, and thank you, Abukar Sene. Clearly, this was very impactful discussion. I can't thank you enough for joining us today, all of you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Abdulkadir.
Thank you. Have a great day, everybody. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi
maydin sifta maashaan maydin sifta maashaan ilaad samaysan saldhiga tidhaahdaan sukay madooba sugumayno nolol wacan ilaad samaysan saldhiga tidhaahdaan sukay madooba sugumayno nolol wacan